All right, hey guys, welcome back. Unit 5, and in this unit we're going to be talking about childcare organizations. I'm just going to tell you up front, this whole unit is going to be thoroughly depressing. Like the least depressing thing we're going to have is the videos that I'm doing right now, and they're not going to be super fun. We're going to have 3 videos, I believe, in this unit. The first one, what we're going to do is contextualize. The childcare organizations that we'll be reading about and seeing a documentary about. So to begin, we're back to our normal model of society. Society is a machine. We've got, our symbolic universe, which defines reality for us, all the things that hold meaning. We've got our collective consciousness, which orients our behavior, tells us how we should live our lives. Both of these are going to become really important because what we're going to do is talk about how the social institution of child rearing is influenced, how it is shaped by our culture. But just to get us back in the context of what we're talking about, we also have the interaction order where informal interactions happen, and then of course social institutions, which is where our organizations all exist. As you guys remember, organizations are aggregates of statuses that are assembled into fictional organizations. All right, so where we have spent our time up to now is in the social institution of the economy, how we meet our needs for survival. Today we are going to be shifting out of the economy. It's useful for you to think about it that way, even though where we're going to be going is into capitalist organizations that take care of kids. But in terms of the way we think about things in sociology, social institutions are patterned ways of meeting needs. The patterned way that we meet our needs for survival is what's called the economy. The patterned way we meet our needs for raising kids, we're going to define slightly differently. We're going to call it child rearing. There's nothing magical about that. It means exactly what you think it means. But we just need a name for the patterned way that we meet the need for raising up the next generation so that they can take their part as adults in our society. Okay, we're going to talk about 2 needs that are met by this process of child rearing, by the social institution of child rearing. The first one is the need for socialization. Now, socialization, since you all have taken Intro to Sociology, I'm going to assume that you remember that socialization doesn't mean what we colloquially think of it as, of you and I just interacting informally, the idea of socializing. Here in sociology, socialization means the process of becoming a member of a society. You want to think about any particular little baby's got the potential to learn any culture and learn how to obey the norms of any particular status. So any child has to learn to be a member of a particular society. My children are learning to be members of American society. But if I was their parent and I was like living in Australia in the 1400s or something, they would have been socialized into an Aboriginal society. So this idea of socialization, the process of learning how to be a member of a particular society, is an important process. We will talk about the fact that in America we absolutely do not take this very seriously, but it is an important process, and it meets the need of being able to get adults who are capable of interacting within the confines of our society. Okay, so first need met by child rearing is the need of socialization. We have a patterned way of meeting that need, and it is child rearing. The second need that is met by child rearing is related, and it is education. Now, we will spend time later in the semester dealing with specifically the social institution of education, but it's important for us to understand that part of child rearing is learning and training for the roles that you will have, particularly roles in the economy. Education can be defined as learning and training for the roles you will have later. You can see it's a slightly different thing than socialization, which is being able to be a member of society in a general way. Education is about learning those specific things. And so we begin teaching kids things like that you need to stand in line, that you need to be able to read, and that you need to be able to do basic math. All of those things kind of happen before, for at least some kids. And this is where this is going to go in a really negative way. Not for as many American kids as for kids in a lot of other industrialized countries. America is not great at child rearing. Okay, so those are the needs that are met. That's the first big idea that we've got in this video. The second is going to be what are the statuses that are involved in this social institution. There's basically going to be two of them, and this is not rocket science. They are a child rearer, somebody who steps into the status of child rearer. So like, for example, right now I'm in the status of teacher, but I will go home and I will be in the status of parent. We're going to talk about it more generally as child rearer because a lot of child rearing happens within organizations, not just within the family. So the status of child rearer, and then the other obvious status is the status of child. Nothing particularly difficult about that. Third and final point from this video is what are the norms that we're going to talk about needing to be present for, or that are attached to the status, I should say, of child rearer. And what I'm going to do is erase this. We're going to have three categories of norms. Three categories of norms. First of all is showing affection, interacting with the child in a way that meets the child's emotional needs. Psychologists will tell you, and some of you may remember some of the brutal sort of stories about feral children. If you don't get those emotional needs met, you don't develop the way a normal member of a society would. Having those emotional needs met, whether it's by a parent, which is obviously easy, or whether it is by a daycare worker, those emotional needs have to be met. It's one of the norms for the status of child rearer. Second is teaching proper behavior. Simple things like you can't steal from other kids, you can't push somebody down just because you're angry at them. So there's sort of encouraging desirable behavior and then managing misbehavior. It's exactly what you think it is. Third one, and where it gets a little bit more interesting, is teaching skills. And when I say a little bit more interesting, none of this particular video is going to be all that interesting. But it's worth breaking out sort of 4 different sets of skills. First of all, we have, and I'm going to write it, I'm going to erase these, and we're going to deal with teaching skills just right here for right now, so that I've got a little bit more room. Teaching skills. So the first set of skills that we have to teach are the idea of intellectual or occupational skills. And this is where that idea of like learning your numbers, learning your shapes. I mean, obviously that's not super occupational, but it is like the foundation for that kind of thing. So intellectual occupational skills. Second of all, self-regulation skills. Not Being able to stay on task, for example, something like that, kind of executive function type of skills. Being able to organize yourself and plan for what you need to be doing. So self-regulation skills, staying on task. Third, coping skills. So can you deal with frustration? Can you deal with failure? When you have negative emotions, can you deal with them effectively? Coping skills. Things that, I mean, in a way, you kind of forget that you had to learn that. But if you've ever been around a kid who is poorly behaved, this is something that has to be taught. And fourth, social skills. Being able to get along, effectively deal with conflict, that type of thing. So that's what we've got for this video. We've got the the needs that have to be met by the social institution of child rearing. They were socialization and education. The statuses that are involved in this patterned way of meeting these needs. Statuses are child rearer and child. I can step into the status of child rearer as a parent, but I could also, if I got a job at a daycare, I would also be in that same status. The status involves certain norms, showing affection, encouraging desirable behavior, managing misbehavior, and then teaching a set of skills. And I think that's it for this video. In the next one, what we're going to do is we are going to contrast how these norms are organized in our society as compared to in our evolutionary past. So I will see you in that video.